This is the Take Your Turn 2022 tournament hosted by Groove of War. Groove of War hosts Wargroove commentary and analysis. Link to their channel in the description. Take Your Turn is composed of 3 events, Wargroove, Chess, and Go, and on this channel we'll be looking primarily at Go. My name is Arm Fosta, and this commentary is aimed at newer players and players in the double-digit Q ranks. If you spot any mistakes or things that we missed, absolutely let us know and leave them in the comments. Commentating with me today is Just Your Eventual Ruler. Hey, Ruler.
Hello, I'm Ruler, and this is just a funny match.
I mean, this
I'm
is a
Fuseki, guys.
it's a fun and a funny match with that you have a personal connection to.
Yeah, sleep. I was also very sleep deprived. I think they're also in America, or at least in NA. So I think they also played at like an absurdly late time.
Well, today
I
we're
don't know
gonna
if they're
be
used to it or not.
today we are gonna be looking at that game from round 3, game 1, between Ruler playing black and Spotyus playing white. So let's see let's see what's funny about this game. It doesn't take us long
Yeah,
before
I played Tengen, guys. The thing I told nobody to do.
you did a thing. You did a
I did a
thing.
very funny thing.
So
Yeah.
obviously the big
Yeah,
thing
take
here,
the corner, guys. I got a corner.
you got
I'm
a
winning.
corner. It's all fine. It's a regular game now. You got a
Yes.
corner. You did the thing of, hey, let me just take all of the influence across the board and none of the points, and let me just put myself dead center and see what I can make happen. So you did you plan on this ahead of time, or did you kind of roll into this and get inspired in the last moment?
This was a plan hatched from the beginning of when I knew I was paired. Like, oh, okay, I don't have to fight Fated. I'm going to do this instead.
And your goal was, so tell me a little bit about the goal of this. I was talking about sort of heavy influence, but what was your mindset going into trying to make this this style happen?
Kill, 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 invade, 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 invade.
So based on that theory, let's see where it goes. I did want to mention there's a couple of things I want to sort of highlight here. I think one of them is I like the idea that Spotyus goes for on move 12 here, with the idea that if everything is based currently, if everything is based in the center, if you can successfully pressure and condense you inward here, and of course not allow any successful invasions or kills, you can Spotyus or white can force you, Ruler, to create a giant stick of nothingness that doesn't do anything. I think though that, especially with this play here at f15, I maybe would have liked to have seen something more, just even more solid, like a d17, something that settles things a little bit more. I think with the higher play at f15, or the more center-based play, it feels kind of crunched in. Did you feel like when you saw both the f13 and the f15, were you feeling any sort of pressure, or were you still just like, that's completely fine, that fits exactly with how I want this to work out?
It is a little bit, I'm pushing into you, but also it's kind of inefficient. Like, there's still a bunch of weaknesses everywhere. Like, that's just too high to actually defend the side. I could potentially hop in on the second line there, and threaten some, like, invasion. Because I already have one working invasion. I could probably attach to the wrong side of the 3-3 invasion, and it'd still be fine since there's just no pressure.
So you're just saying, like, if you 3-3 invaded, you could still go down, and you've got enough space in here that you feel like, or
I
you're
meant
saying,
the C16. Force the direction.
oh, force the direction, start at c16 and just go. I
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay, so
Yeah.
we're talking about the play here at the 3-4
Yeah,
point, and
but
just
there's just too many invasions right now for that to be really efficient. If you wanted to play bigger, I would suggest playing D14, but that more indirectly defends this corner inside. You're kind of giving up the corner when you do that. I like doing that, but it's kind of hard to play super big here, so it might just be worth it to do a normal enclosure, which basically kills the invasion if they play another move like a kick. So like a kick would have been good here. Like I would have probably preferred to play a kick just because that defends the quarter and threatens to pincer. And right now I wouldn't pincer. In fact, it's probably not a good idea to pincer at all. But just the fact that you're threatening to do mean stuff to my stone does make me want to react to it. And it also gives you another tempo to defend your side, which is very important.
Right. And this is sort of the same thing. I feel like in this game, one of the things that sort of stood out as I was looking at it is you were making, or I mean, I kind of forced to, by your own setup, to make very, very fast big plays that you're then going to fall back on later and utilize to make those kills to create that territory. It feels like whereas you were playing very fast and loose, Spotyus, it feels like sort of contracted and played very small, like the G14 move, and I think was one in which when you're playing at 017, I think it probably would have made more sense or been maybe a stronger, more efficient response to be looking at use the pen here, looking at that right hand side, and to ignore it so completely isn't something that gets lost on you, and immediately you know you're on it. You're there to take advantage of the fact that there isn't a direct response. And again, it's another sort of thing with the R15. It feels like it's just like the G with the F15 play over here. In both situations, I'd like to get your thoughts, because to me it feels like I see the intent, and I think the intent makes sense, but it's sort of in an awkward position where it isn't really doing enough. This R15 stone specifically isn't doing enough to really defend your top from any invasions. Does kind of allow you to get underneath, but feels a bit slow to me. I don't know. What do you think?
It doesn't really allow you to get underneath because the issue is that Knights move at R13.
R13.
Maybe even the large Knights move even works here. But
At
definitely the small Knight, yeah.
At R12?
Or that's the elephant. Yeah, maybe even go down further if that connection works, because that's if that connection is actually strong, you're threatening to just take the corner even more, which is scary. But you have to read B out. But also, the main thing is if you play A, look at the middle stone. That looks quite surrounded.
Yep, at Q9 on the start point.
And I think there's a bigger move here. I don't know if I play it, but I think there's an even bigger move here. So let's
see where you go.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I consider that big. That's big enough. That's not the move I was thinking of, but that's probably bigger than what I was originally intending.
I think this is a really great example too of the pacing, right? So, you get to play P14 to help to start putting pressure on the right hand side to give you some more presence in the center. White does respond with R15, but because it's so small, it isn't really putting any pressure back on you, and it gives you free reign to continue to be aggressive, to continue to force Spotyus to respond with F3.
This is also just a lot of points. Mm-hmm. And I think they respond quite weirdly here. If I remember, they respond with... Yeah, okay. So this is a move, but it isn't the right move at this time. You don't do a Kosumi here until you're double approached. And that's because a Kosumi is like a running move here. It's good for shape and allows you to get out and also sometimes pressure the corner if you're during late game, if your opponent doesn't evade immediately. So because of that, you just kind of want to enclose on the other side instead.
Right, I was going to say,
rather than just run.
An enclosure feels like it might have been. Again, I'm maybe today I'm just favoring the real simple extensions, but there are multiple enclosures you could do to sort of lock down the left hand side, kind of strengthen things, and give you a better leverage if you did want to turn around, or if you were really interested in trying to get out further. I think that this also sort of right now it feels like the E5 at A gets you out into the center, but you don't really have anywhere to go yet, and sort of positions you for a couple different directions without the sort of base that you might want to work with. So I think that it might have made more sense here to commit to one or the other. If for some reason you felt like you needed to give up the corner, then at the very least, going a bit further at least would have sort of given you a little bit more strength, a little more even strength across the left hand side, as opposed to sort of the way we ended up here. But and so naturally, when white goes and plays at e5, that's leaving open the corner for you.
Yeah, free corner.
And
But they're
again,
giving it up, so that's fine.
yeah,
So I just take the corner, take all my free stuff.
yep, I think that was
I don't even
cool.
think that's actually Sente. Like, I took an Atari that probably should have just, like, it doesn't actually matter that much.
Right.
But I
But
took it anyways. I think it keeps my grooves connected, so I'll give myself a pass.
no, I mean,
Keeps my groove,
it
yeah.
does, it does.
This is the big move that I was thinking of earlier. This is a really fun pincer. Very close on one side and very loose on the other. And they
Yeah.
ignore it. Let's
They,
go.
I think that another thing too is that Spotyus seemed very focused on trying to make the left happen, or the bottom left, which makes sense. But when another sort of theme of this is, it's true, you don't always want to respond to everything. Not every move that your opponent makes needs a response. But a big move like Q8 is putting a lot of pressure, like you were talking about, on that Q10 stone on this start point, and is just this whole right side is under significant pressure. So to ignore it has to be a pretty darn significant move, and it feels like that G5 play is just a little bit small. Well, it just is too small in this case. You could certainly do it, but maybe do that later after you come back and either at least either reinforce or try to see if you can't make something happen here. I think the big thing is, Ruler, you've been able to put down more and more stones at on this right hand side, this bottom right, and at some point pretty soon there will be no or very few options to invade. And the longer we're over here in the left hand corner focused on this smaller section, the less opportunities we're going to have to prevent you from just vacuuming up all the points. And so I think a bigger
Yeah.
move like that might have made sense.
I'd also point out that I can double Hane here, which is great locally. Board wise, I would actually say it's bigger to like make sure that the star point stone on the right side is isolated with one of the previous knight moves we mentioned. But locally in this position, it's not even that good. Because I just double Hane, and you're helping me build even more territory on space that really shouldn't have been my territory.
Right. Right.
Some sort of like you already actually have pretty decent wall spacing here, so it's probably best to just help that group by playing at on the right by playing at Q13. I think that would have solved most of your problems.
Yeah.
And it would have like helped with points, and then I can't do as nearly as much. But they didn't do that.
No, so they went ahead and they continued to focus on the bottom left. You respond.
Why didn't they double Hana? I must have been tired.
They really tried to. I think must be a little bit later. Really looking to try to destabilize. And so on the one hand, it makes sense because if they could somehow get it, obviously it would give them some points. I think maybe another big question I have is what was the read here? What was their path forward? Because as we can see, you were in good shape. I think another thing. This is one thing I wanted to point out. So, I think this is a really good example of one of those times in which you feel like, as the white player, you can feel like you have these weaknesses that you can try to exploit. And so I'm guessing, for example, that Spotyus was looking at moves like this. But I think when you start to read it out, you see that in fact, in trying to exploit those weaknesses, if you don't read it out fully, when you start,
you just strengthen.
You strengthen. Yeah. Now Ruler, you're in a good position, and you are getting in an even better position. This cutting point doesn't do anything, and suddenly by the end of it, not only are all those stones under attack, Spotyus has also helped you to build an even stronger base to work from here and give you even more leverage in the bottom right. So I think that that was one of those times where you looked weak, but the way you played it out was great.
Yeah, it's also important to note that this move does nothing in terms of the
Right.
capturing race because that four group is dead and you're not going to be able to make eyes. So playing anywhere in that local situation just gives up Sente, which gives me an extra move, which is huge, especially since I get to do this now.
Right. And again, great thing. This is the one. This ends up not doing anything, but two, just you were able to play at R13 because you had read out and you had looked at what happens if I ignored this position and white does play, where Spotius does. Am I okay?
Yeah,
You are, so
this is what I expected.
you can
Yeah,
look elsewhere.
yeah, I expected this, and I actually expected the blunder that happened afterwards.
Ah, okay. Okay. And this is one of those situations too where I think it can, if you have a little bit of time on your clock, certainly a little bit before, and anytime before this helps. But when you get into situations where you find that it's not going the way you want to, taking a little extra time and trying to read out, is there a way forward? Looking at this in this local position, there there isn't. In which case, or at least you can't read out one right now. In which case, you should be looking elsewhere on the board. Where else can you make things happen? What else can you do? What are bigger plays you can make? And you can always come back and try to reread again if there's time. See if there's something you missed, because that's absolutely possible. But if you can't see a way out of it, continuing to put stones here not only gives black or ruler more points here, it
Oh, that's a mistake.
it's
Technically, that's minor. Continue.
it strengthens the position, and removes moves later threats you could try to use and leverage in co-fights. So now this is settled and there's nothing.
It would have just been to get the Atari on top because the other group is just connect or die, right? So clear out the something that can be annoying later than something that's just dead.
Yep. Well,
Um, so that's just a mild. It's not like game ending,
no.
but it is annoying that I missed that. But it is dead anyways
I
too,
mean,
so whatever.
yeah, and it's not. It's right. It's definitely not the end of the world to just get rid
It's
of
just
it now.
that it would have been more efficient to place a stone closer to the middle than on the edge of the board here. Also expected the next blunder after here.
So it K18. I think this is a good example of where the R15 stone earlier was to help strengthen this Q16 stone and give a little bit of strength to that corner, but it leaves open. It leaves open a surprising amount of space, and you do take advantage of it. And we still have Spotius looking here. I think this is another case of where, you know,
I've just killed that group basically.
I mean, so this is the left hand, the bottom left is settled. And it's not even that some of these moves aren't moves you shouldn't do. Reductions can be good, but reductions are generally something that happens in the later stages of the late game. Right now, you've just been attacked up in the top right with a big threat. I don't even know if there's like just getting that group out may be difficult. I'm not, but
You
and then
can't get it out.
you've also got
You're,
that star point here. This under
another,
threat.
yeah, another thing is that, like, even though some of your stones look fine, like the three group, I knew that was dead. If that might not be dead if you play there again, but even if you do, that's really hard to live.
On the M line here.
Yeah, if I get the next move, that's dead. And I was expecting a blunder there too, because it doesn't look very obvious why it's dead, but there's a shortage of liberties. It's basically a crane's nest.
Which
If I get an extra move, because the bottom right is not looking so good.
no.
That was a bit ramble. I'm tired, guys. Sorry.
No, it is, and we'll see that play out in just a little bit. And then up top here, we have we have Spotius
Pushing in here,
It's
yeah.
pushing the bottom left, ignoring the top right. allowing you to get free. You have the slide at D18. Again, each of these, I think Spotyus. I think maybe this would be the way, or one way to think about it. I know that in the past, in some of my games, I have read out a path forward for capturing. So maybe Spotyus is really looking at that and says, I can capture this if I get like six moves in a row. And so trying to get those 6 moves in a row in your brain just takes precedence over everything else. But as a result, during that time, really you're taking every corner, every which way, and you are just going bonkers on the board.
I'm threatening to kill everything, and I don't think they realize it.
And I think the other big thing about when you look at this and say, I could kill this if, the if, being really critical with yourself about the if is so important. Consider, this will work out if we get 5 moves in a row. That's 5.
Think about what your opponent can do in 5 moves.
Right.
I could get that entire top in 5 moves.
What I think, yeah, that's a really good point. Like, what can your opponent do in those 5 moves? What do you gain? How much do you actually gain if you can get those 5 moves in? And how many opportunities does your opponent have to stop those 5 moves? If it's only those 5 moves and there's no backups, that means you could get 4 moves in where your opponent could play anywhere, and then your opponent could still stop you on the last move and you would have nothing. And I think that's what we're looking at here. Is my best guess is Spotyus. I'm thinking is seeing a way forward and a way to like capture this, but isn't thinking about what's being given up and what happens if they're stopped, which there are a number of ways to stop. And so you do.
Yeah,
like you
capture
said,
those stones.
You get those. You lock that down.
That's a fun move.
And that makes that easy.
Sente, but I think they ignore it because that's actually probably the correct thing to do.
Right.
Okay, not like this, but it is probably correct to just ignore the 3 stones because you lose Sente afterwards, which you need Sente to guarantee points at the left side, or maybe life at the top right.
So I wanted to make a small point here, which is this is a really great, easy, relatively easy reading example to think through, and we have a good example. We have a nice real life example here, which is after. We'll go back just a smidge. After the play at N3 by Black, how might White respond? And if we look with how things end up playing out, from here, from the N2 play, if you take a minute and you practice reading, it's only 3 or 4 moves to see, well, not, I mean, if we count this one, then it's like 2 or 3 moves, but practice where would Black respond? What is Black's goal? What would Black do? How do I respond? What is my goal? How do I respond? And then what is the follow-up? If you can read through, because we'll see this play out in just a second, you'll see that obviously White's going to get captured here. That's no spoiler. In which case, that's why we should start to look elsewhere, right? So that's why, as Ruler just mentioned, it was a smart play, probably to not play, to avoid playing at C1, and to instead look elsewhere. When you're evaluating, then we're looking here next. If we read it through, we see what happens in the actual game. We'll see that it doesn't work, so we should be looking again elsewhere. Process of elimination.
Yeah. I would also like to point out that White can do a very cheeky, funny thing and try to jump 1 space and live like, well, quote-unquote, live, keep the stick alive. Like, your strongest option is 0-1, but that doesn't work because that keeps you, I think at best that gets you 1 eye because you have the corner. So but even then, I think you have things to stop it, right? And you can just play a shoulder hit.
Yeah. So if you go...
Yeah.
I mean, that you can't... There's just not enough. There's not enough space there. But, and so you're absolutely right. So if we read out what is Black's response, Black is obviously trying to kill the group, can reduce it down to 1 liberty, and White can absolutely threaten here, but White is a liberty behind. And so the when you obviously reading mistakes are like this are common because it's a complicated game, But the end result is, in this case, now there is no real presence in the bottom right or even the bottom center for white to make use of later, and black has virtually a very few, if any, threats in that bottom corner because of how many stones are now in that space. So that's the other thing. When you identify that this may not work, you can still leave it for later. Ruler and I have talked a little bit about that. But not only that, if you play it out, you remove future possibilities from yourself as well. So Ruler's in a great position.
Yeah,
After
just
this, you're in a great position.
yeah, we said that I had a corner, and I was right. I did have a corner. I had a huge corner.
You did have a corner.
A very massive corner for how I played, and a very massive top.
I think it is worth maybe one last thing, real quick, and then I know we have another 100 moves
Yeah.
or so, so I shouldn't delay too much. But I do think it's good, and it's great to see Spotyus looking for these opportunities. I think it is very smart because it's often the case that groups that you leave that aren't dead can have possibilities to them. And there are, you as you said, you were looking at that 0-1 play. There are absolutely cheeky things you can do, and there are lots of ways in which you can make groups alive or utilize groups to get captures in the turn situations around you wouldn't think. So it's great that Spotyus is looking for this. I think it's only that when that possibility doesn't exist, playing it through can end up hurting you.
There's a very funny variation. So white plays at 0-1, black attaches on top, and let's say white jumps, which should be the plan here.
It queued.
Yeah, right here. Yeah. Black then plays at N1.
Oh, that's cute. That's cute. That's cute. Because if you capture, then you get a snap back.
You don't even take the snapback.
Oh, you would just take the.
I mean, you could take the snapback. The snapback is the actual threat I saw here, but you should probably just ignore it and shoulder hit the other side. Or just shoulder hit something, just prevent it from running. And now it's like super dead, and they've invested more into it.
Right, right. Let them continue to invest if they choose, and just lock them down.
Yeah. That's a cute threat.
Yeah, I didn't see that. So then we do have Spotyus, trying to come in from the right side, and this is a really difficult position. So I think that we are starting at this point from a position in which you have in the more immediate area, you've got 6 stones ready to go surrounding this stone, and it really reduces the possibilities. So already Spotyus is playing from behind. I think part of that might be why I think that the P9 for me might be a little small. And I could be wrong about that, but I feel like it is a safer move because we're keeping our stones closer together. But when our goal is we need to make an ice space, or we need to find a way to get out somehow, playing so small when you already have when black has this large net that they've got, feels like it's setting you up for trouble.
Well, okay, I actually don't hate the shape move here. I wouldn't say it's necessarily the best or the move I would even play, but it does give you shape, and that's kind of important here.
Sure.
And at least with how I responded, it is good for white, because white can now just plunge in both directions, like an attachment at P13 looks kind of fun, because it threatens to cut a stone, which is very scary here. I'd probably just let that get cut and then say I'm fine, which is probably not good. But white also has the option of jumping far out at M10.
M10.
M10, yeah, M10. You also have you're threatening to go both up and down to make shape, and you're threatening to cut through eventually, because those knife moves are pretty strong, but they still have a cut to them.
Right. That's also fair. They're definitely not impenetrable.
Yeah. Usually, if you have extra stones around them, then that's when the knight's move doesn't work. And you got to play a little more solid. But usually, if there's nothing around your knight moves stones or large night stones, then it's fine because you can usually net or ladder stones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So
this is just fighting.
yeah, so we've got some fighting here.
I win the ladder and the
You,
net, actually.
I was gonna say this is I think a great example of where, these center stone pieces are really coming in handy, and you can see the way in which you're able to utilize them to break out here and just continue. And I think this is the thing of, if this were more open space, it would be a very different situation because white is completely surrounded by black. The addition of these cutting points becomes a lot more fearsome. Causes
Yeah.
me a lot more worry.
I take A here. Okay, I wasn't as sleep deprived as I thought. I thought I missed that, but I don't even actually need to play that. I could just like ignore that and play some. Well, I mean, I could play. I mean, when I'm talking about A, this is specifically about ladders. I could allow them to play the ladder, and it wouldn't do them any good. So yeah, they Atari and I extend, and then they try to ladder, like they threaten a ladder, or not here.
No, I
With
know.
my cutting stone.
Oh, with your cutting
How they
stones,
played it
yes.
on the game. Yeah, I come back in Atari because it's free, but I think the next move is yeah. They could have laddered me if I didn't play here, and it would have been perfectly fine for me. Is something to note.
Right. So if you played,
I mean, I probably would have cut the top right. I would have, or not cut. Oh, Hane at the Hane in 12, and that seems like
no, there we go.
that seems to kill both groups like on the spot.
Right.
I think do I do that in the game? That feels like something I would do in the game. I mean, I take a free Atari.
Yeah.
I think that this would have been stronger.
But you were making the point, if we just go here for a second, that even if white were to try to ladder again, the presence of that center stone at J13 that you set up, white can't successfully ladder even if you didn't do anything.
Yeah, there's two ladder breakers in that variation.
Yeah, actually true. There are two. But you do, so you take the Atari, and then you do Hane.
Yeah, I do.
12.
Yeah, that kills the group. And the only way to live is to get that center stick out, and they don't. So I think I just okay. No, I play an anti-shape move. That's okay. So I don't know how good this is, but what I do like to do against sticks near the edge. So you could go back a few moves when I played the Kosumi right here. Yeah. So the reason you play this move is that it not only puts more pressure on white, but also it prevents them from running out to the bottom. It's kind of like how a kick works. It's basically a kick. Because normally white could try and play something like Q8 and then get Sente, or R8, I mean, which is right under my two, or not right, yeah, right there. I think black's best response is to immediately Hane on the inside, and then white will try and cover. White will no, they will that way.
Okay.
And then black will Hane, and try to capture. They would put the 2 stone on Atari. White would extend. White would extend that way, and then it's kind of unclear who wins here. There's a lot of Aji. In fact, if black doesn't respond, white has the cut at P6, P7, because they still have Aji.
Oh, sorry.
In fact, ooh, you're right. That's actually stronger. They should Atari my 4 stick first. Yes. So no, you're right. The variation is correct, but right here,
yeah.
Then white Atari's my 4 stone, by playing O7, and then comes back and plays Q7, and that kills the group and saves. It gives them a one eye. So it's a tough fight for me.
I see.
Yeah. So I shouldn't ignore this. And even if I do allow them to do this, there is still a lot of threats around me. My groups are not. They're safe for now. If I play around them, they're not dead.
No, they're not dead. Sorry, I was trying to read out some more variations there. Um, they're not dead, but um, so your goal here with R9 is to avoid those complications and to
And
keep it
steal,
simpler.
yeah. Well, not even keep it simpler. It also just steals eye space. I think that's also very important. It's very aggressive with stealing eye space, but it's also pretty strong and also undercuts white, so it induces them to go down, which I think they sounds like something they'd probably do. No, they tried Atari, and that gets rid of the Aji for me. So I actually don't think that's particularly good. Um, a stronger play would have probably been to extend.
Yeah,
I would
extend. I
say,
would.
yeah, it gives you a bit more of a fighting chance, but you're probably also just losing those stones in the process.
Right.
So I don't know.
But it is so I think it is the difference here is that in this situation, with the way it ends up, there isn't really a strong connection.
Yeah,
So still cut off. And
yeah. Now the group is just netted.
yeah, in a situation too where I think like we have white doing extensions here within playing into your stones, playing into a smaller and smaller setting as opposed to trying to jump out. And I think that because white is playing into you, you take advantage of that to lock the possibilities down. But if white were looking for what can I do, my eyes would definitely be looking towards something a little
Running
bit bigger
away.
and
Yeah,
wider, running
you might
away.
be able to. You might be able to get them out. There's enough cutting points to where it's not entirely clear for white, and there's actually a potential ladder. No, not a potential ladder. You'd have to play like a ladder breaker somewhere. But in this variation, white just can't escape.
Right. And I think a big thing is because you got off the J8 stone, because you were able to set that net in advance. When white does go to break out now with the extra presence of the stone there,
It's
it's
important to. I think it's also not very obvious why I had to extend here. So if you could go back a few minutes, I can
sure.
tell. I think the variation. So right here, if I just Hane here, like basically a double Hane, it looks fine because normally this is fine. However, um, white has the variation of playing at K11, and I can't Atari, so I have to connect. So at J10, and then um, white would have to play a ladder breaker here, but a ladder breaker here could be like very strong. And this leaves a lot of Aji for black, um, and starts to actually attack my top group with their weak groups. And it's not that safe. Yeah, because if they get any of those stones, it's just over. Um, there is a ladder, but just because I control the center, it's unfortunately does I don't think works here. But it is important to note that this does lead to complications, and I was tired.
Yeah. And I think there's the potential to make use of like with a push here. I think there's the
Yeah,
potential to try and even eventually turn right to sort
make
of
it high. Yeah.
yeah.
It's there's just a lot of not good that could happen here.
And
So it's
so you
just
just
extend.
extend.
Yeah, and also the more stones they throw in, the more points I get from it. So it doesn't matter that I'm losing a point by doing that. Important to note, that is not a real eye, and I choose to make it a real eye. Why? You don't need to cover every single eye. You just need to make sure they don't have two,
Right.
and make sure you cover your weaknesses. This is a weakness for me. Especially after I covered it, it's no longer a weakness, and that's great.
Yeah, and so
Do I play on top?
we can see
No,
the
I don't.
K11 play
I
now is
shouldn't
very different. Oh,
play.
sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm reading stuff out.
Now we can see that Spotyus does do the K11 play, but at this point in the game, it's very different. It's not nearly doesn't have the same potential as a threat that it would have when you were talking about it when you were thinking about whether to extend or not. So it's much easier to deal with, and because of that, we get into the situation where it's just
That's Sente, by the way. Normally, so this is the time for reduction in my eyes, because it looks pretty defined what areas I'm gonna get. Right, I'm probably gonna get all of the right side and a bit of the top and bottom. Right, so reductions are fine here. Um, it'd be pretty big for me to actually cut off that bottom group if I managed to play both B3 then A3. That's one, two, three, four, or actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 14 points. That's 14 points, and that's pretty huge considering that how many stones white invested. This is also a probing move because look what I do. This is cute. I think I just capture right here, and this also sets up more endgame later, because I now have another threat, which I think I take now because they played small. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the A. I was looking at the A5. I think is fine, but I think it had the potential to leave a little bit open to me. So I was
Well,
wondering about another.
I don't
I guess it
actually hate this
has.
move because it makes eye shape. Like you actually have to start worrying about white's eye shape here now. And I don't think it's terribly good for white. Otherwise, maybe I mean
I guess
maybe
no,
you could
that's
get
fair.
away. Yeah, this is just like feels like an eye shape move. It feels more efficient than just blocking.
That's a
Like
good point. I think.
because if they now they don't have to worry about the group after that. They only have to play 2 moves to make eyes, which is the thing.
I guess the thought was that if you the two thoughts were looking at either uh, a block here to just remove more of the possibilities for shenanigans later, but also just to play more directly at B1. Like, because a B1 opponent.
B1 might work, but that's not a real eye.
No, no, no. It's not a real. Yeah, it's not a real eye. Um,
In fact, it's captured. A2.
yeah, I guess I was looking. I guess I'm getting into needless in the code that wouldn't benefit you. So you're right. There wouldn't be a reason. Um,
A2, and yeah.
Capturing with the others,
You
but you're absolutely right. Like that doesn't. It's still a full size, so it's not really doing anything for you. Um, so yeah, I mean it does make sense. I think I was also still worried initially about this play here, but it isn't.
yeah, it gets covered by the next move they played. So I actually say that's a good move. Good move, Spotyus. Um,
Nice.
that move made pretty much perfect sense to me. It's not the most beautiful move, but it does everything that you like need it to do. So it's fine. Um, and I think the next I probably start taking corners now. That's a dead group. Very sad to see that happen. And they make sure they have eyes and try to connect. I think. What do I do here next? Is my question. Yeah, okay. I was thinking that seems very natural to me to split up the group to threaten to kill it. Which the good thing about smashing straight through two groups like this is that they have to play twice as many stones to defend because they have to play you on both sides. So because of that, you're being very efficient with your stones. With I guess this is an invasion technically,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like invasion. It feels like a reduction with how I played it out. But
So if
it's
we
a
look,
very safe invasion. So yeah, they have to play so many stones. I played 3 stones, and look how many stones I have to respond on the bottom.
right, and
Yeah.
because of the way in which you've fallen back to your larger group here, you don't need. You also aren't necessarily worried about
Connections. Yeah.
yeah. So you have a lot more flexibility and freedom, and we see that in the way in which you can just tear through.
That's
This
this is a fun Tasuji. Okay, let's get back. This is I don't blame them for missing this one. I don't think this is forced. I think there was a way to avoid it, and I think that it might have been possible for me to force it, but with how it played out, it's fine. So there's a throw in right here. I think the best move is actually to connect your inside group. I think
yeah,
that's how you
B9.
avoid it.
Yeah.
But this is a cheeky play. I'm like, hey, you're gonna want to block this, and this is a common Q mistake to just try to immediately kill something that you see, and then the ladder comes in. This is Sente because if they don't take, I get out for free, and also those stones are definitely dead, so you take, and then you ladder. There's two ways to ladder here, in fact, but this one's flashier. You make the box and then ladder. The other one is just like an empty triangle then ladder.
Right. But this one, you take all the way.
Actually, it might have been better to do the other one because you get more points. But either way, the thing is that they shouldn't have played it out. Once they realized that it was a ladder, you should like stop playing it unless it's like useful for you.
Right.
So you shouldn't be giving me points here. Is this a big thing?
But you're able to play the ladder out and you get a really nice position. And again, we're in that situation where, to your point too, exactly to your point, because the ladder's played out, now we're looking at, if we we'll use squares for Spotyus. So these center white group stones now are looking a little worse for wear,
Yeah,
because they're surrounded much more on both sides.
and I think I'd take. Yeah, I just so they play. So they play like that. So I just steal their eye shape.
Yep.
Um, and that's all this is going to be about. I don't even really need to kill it. I also have the invasion still. The invasion still exists. I can play at the 2/2 point or force of direction by attaching to the 3/3 stone. That's the scariest part of this.
It which isn't activated right now, but doesn't really need to be. And the fact, like you
Yeah,
said, it's there, it's still open.
yeah. Now I take it
Yeah, you
because
take it.
now they don't have eyes because I get out, guaranteed.
Well,
Um, this is a care. This is a trust of your own faith. This looks like it's dead, but it's not. It's barely not dead. Um, this is so close. My big stick in the center looks like it's dead.
right. I was gonna say this is definitely one of those in which it's
You
really
reading,
important
yeah.
to read out to the end and to
This
keep
is
track of
like
all the stones in your head.
this feels like a phantom situation where the two liberties just are connected. It feels like it's a dumpling and not like about to be an eye, basically. But
Right.
I trusted myself. Yeah,
Doesn't even. I'm trying to remember. Does it actually come up? I'm not sure we do see it, but it just also, a nice job here in reducing and being able to take away uh, the
eye
corner
shape.
there.
Yeah.
All right, and now
Well, they
there's,
have no eyes, so it doesn't even matter at this point.
yeah.
So okay, wait. They play out the ladder. I would like to point out there's a stronger variation to the ladder for white, in terms of trying to actually get out. So rather than playing that, the first move they should play, the second they get laddered, is probably to ignore it and threaten to get the other group out. I would probably play at L14, but I guess that just gets captured. So I mean, I guess you're just dead.
Yeah,
Either way, they get
unfortunately.
captured.
Yeah.
If the other stone had an extra liberty, then this would be much scarier as a threat because not only are you threatening to break the ladder, but you're also threatening to get the other stone out. Unfortunately, here it doesn't work. Too bad.
Not this time. And so we come to the end, and I believe you win by resignation.
Yeah, well, there's not much game left to be played. It's pretty clear that there's no eye on any group except for that side one that has many eyes. In fact, I would say too many eyes.
Yeah, a few too many. And I think that overall, well, let me pass it to you first. What are your thoughts about the game now that we're at the end of it, having reviewed it, but also being the one who was in it?
I may have misled Spotyus into thinking playing Tengen was good. um,
Is
my
that
bad.
is that your preview of game two?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I played fine. I was mildly sleep deprived, but hey, I managed to play a tactical game while sleep deprived, so I think that's a plus.
Definitely a plus. I think that one of the things that it probably, I'm guessing that Spottius probably hasn't had to play against a style like this much, if at all. And I think that the way they were trying to go about it definitely made sense. I think that in this case, I probably would have been either a little more aggressive or potentially if I were going to be more defensive, maybe I still would have sort of shifted things around a little bit. I think that there was some over concentration early on, and particularly in that bottom left, where I think there were opportunities in which Spotyus could have played elsewhere, particularly on that right side early on, to give them leverage, better leverage going into the later part of the game. By the time we get to this, you know, get a little bit further.
I actually think they should have played less aggressive, more Honte, which basically means proper. Um, which by that I mean like just play solid, take points where you can get them, develop a big side. They try to just go into fighting, and that doesn't really work out too well whenever I'm the one with the fighting advantage. Not only that, they ended up leaving their groups pretty weak in favor of trying to get free moves on the fighting, which doesn't help because even if they get one free move, I've basically gotten 5 free moves in the fighting. So there's
Right.
yeah.
I see. Yeah, no, and you make a good point. I think that's a really good. It's a good point to make. I think the sort of to add to that, the distinction that I should add is that I was probably using aggressive improperly, because aggressive can mean fighting, and I think in this case I mean it more. You can play proper, and you can. I think that Spotyus could have played more defensive, could have tried to cinch up the corners quicker and then moved forward, or as opposed to sort of going for more center base play, or I was thinking could have been more aggressive and in the sense that they could have tried to fight for the corner early on. They could have tried to
Yeah.
condense you down. But I think you're absolutely so the way I was using was incorrect. I think you're absolutely right that the actual getting into fighting so early on and being so focused on the the fairly small in this case points for the bottom left really did a lot to give you the time and the space to play the game you wanted, to set yourself up, to
Yeah.
have everything in place so that when they did get around to trying to tackle those spaces, you were good.
Remember, the thing about playing in the center is that you have to make every stone that you play useful. Normally, when you're playing in the corner, that's very useful. You threaten to make corner points. You don't actually make it because you can get invaded, but you threaten to either make a wall or get corner points. And you also threaten to develop sides. Whereas you play the center, it's not very clear. Except whenever you get to a position like this, where it's pretty obvious that my center stones are clamping down very hard on everything around it.
I think particularly because of what you mentioned, previewing game two, I think this is also a really good example of how from this game we can look and it can feel like it's the center. It was these initial opening moves and just the center play must be crazy strong. But when we start to break down the game, we see that the center obviously is a core part of this, but that there were a lot of other elements and a lot of other opportunities in which Spotius could play that ultimately created the situation where by the late game we're feeling like there was never an opportunity to break out.
Yeah.
And it's because there were other elements early on that enabled, you ruler to just get what feels like move after free move after move after move in, to
Yeah.
make that center work so well, to turn that center around and to be able to use it as strongly as you did to make it feel so oppressive.
Don't give me a wall, guys. That's like rule number 1 against me. Don't give me a wall. Not even one in the beginning. It's not going to be fun.
Ruler's banned from making walls. Rest of the
Yeah.
tournament.
I'm probably notorious for making huge walls and then killing stuff inside of it.
Well, I think that about wraps up the analysis of game one. I obviously need to mention that if you're a fan of chess, Wargroove, turn-based games in general, the Groove of War channel has a lot of great content. Obviously, a lot of Wargroove content, but they've also got the chess replays from the tournament as well. And otherwise, thank you, Ruler, for helping me, and thank you everybody for watching.
Yeah. See you guys.